Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and you are listening to Motorsport Idag Podcast.
Hey, and hello to this brand new episode of Motorsport Idag Podcast. Today we have a living legend and a true pioneer of motor racing. Let us welcome Mr. Mario Andretti to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, David.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to have you on, sir. So I can imagine being quite busy recently and so far this year. And also with that, what do you think of this year's Indy 500?
Well, obviously, from a family standpoint, when I have my son's team being successful there, obviously it's a great pleasure, and I'm very proud of that fact. Michael, I think has done really very well with his team over the years. As an owner, he won Indianapolis 4 times. He won the national championship also several times with top drivers. And I'm on the sideline, and from that standpoint, but I watch with a lot of pride, as I say, and also watch my grandson Marco develop his career driving for him.
And he's been doing very well. I've been trying to follow him here from Sweden, and he's been doing pretty darn well.
Yes, yeah, but can always be better. He needs to win more races, and he knows that more than I do. And but it's the competition is amazing. Of course, that's no excuse. Somebody's always up front. Somebody wins, so might as well be you. But I think we've yet to see the best of him. I keep saying that because I know that he has the talent and the poise, to be part of this series, part of the sport at this level. But again, there's always something that interferes. A little bit of luck here and there, which I know very well. But nevertheless. He's very committed, and we're talking about Marco, and I'm always riding on his shoulder, tapping him on the head a little bit. Go faster, go slower.
That's great to have you on the sidelines. Before we go into your background a little bit, I saw you were present at Homestead 2015 for Jeff Gordon's last race. Could you just touch a little bit on his impact on a sport like NASCAR before we move into you?
Well, Jeff Gordon is obviously one of the icons of the sport, of the NASCAR series. He's been so extremely successful, and he's a great ambassador as well. He speaks very well, and he looks good, and his success has been the envy of his competitors, of course. And for his last race, he invited me to be down there personally, and of course I accepted. And of course there were many of his friends outside of NASCAR there. One in particular was Lewis Hamilton. And so we went to the race, and we cheered him on, and then we had a great party later. So all of it was very, very good. And again, you could see that now he's a commentator for NASCAR for the races, and he's doing extremely well. But Jeff Gordon has been a good friend for many years, and again, he's the one that has given so much to the sport, and of course, the sport has given a lot to him as well. So it's been a win-win situation, as you can imagine.
Let's move on and talk a little bit about you and your background. You were born and raised in Montona, Italy in 1940, if I'm not mistaken. So, from what I've read, your childhood wasn't just smooth sailing. What can you say about the way you grew up?
Well, as quickly as I can, I was born in 1940, and that's pretty much when the Second World War broke out. And as a child, obviously, we were right in the middle of it. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. Of course, I didn't know any better. But you can always detect, from your own family, that something is not normal. And anyway, the long and the short is our area became occupied by Yugoslavia in 1947, which is hardline communism, and we had a choice as all of the inhabitants of that area to remain and succumb to communism or maintain the Italian citizenship and move on, just come away from there and leave everything behind. And of course, my parents, and millions of others did the same thing. And we moved on. We were refugees in our own country, in Italy, for 7 years, until my dad had an opportunity to come to America, and he made the decision in 1955, and here we are. You know, it's at the beginning it was you would say, well, we're just going to America like for 5 years and then come back, but you know, obviously we came over, and our life began here, and of course very happily so, quite honestly, because America provided so many opportunities, especially for myself and my twin brother Aldo, who were so ambitious about motor racing. And of course, again, we started working on that immediately after we arrived here.
Yeah, and so you and of course your twin brother Aldo, as you were talking about, when did you sort of start to get the buzz for motor racing?
The buzz for me started way back in Italy when I was just became a teenager at age 10, 11. I was following Formula One, as you can imagine. Italy was always very prominent in Formula One with Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo as the brands that were involved. So, and current world champions. My idol right at the start for me of my passion was Alberto Ascari, who was world champion in the mid-50s. And so the dream began there, actually, in Italy. And we were able to cultivate and continue it when we arrived here. We arrived in the States. I was 15 years old. And 2 years later, of course, went to school and all that, but 2 years later, my brother and I started, and some friends started working toward building a race car to race locally. And that's how in 2 years after that, we started. At age 19, we started, that's when my career started, and my career, that was my first race at age 19, and my last race was at age 60 in 2000 at 24 Hours of Le Mans. My career was never interrupted. Unfortunately, my brother's was. He had two very, very serious accidents at the end of the first season, and another one 10 years later, which ended his career. But he was still very supportive, obviously, to today, and he has a third generation race drivers in his own family as well.
How much do you cherish these moments, being able to watch legends like you said, Ascari, and didn't you also have the opportunity to be close or also watched was it Juan Malfangio as well?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, Ascari because it was Italian, but there were many others, all that I admired, and I got to know Manuel Fangio, I got to know Sterling Moss, and I definitely, had a lot of respect and admiration for like Mike Hawthorne and Mike, and just all the other drivers of the era. So I just, they capture my imagination for sure, and I'm just so fortunate that right here in the office I'm looking at a photo with myself at a Mercedes anniversary with Manuel Fangio. We got John Surtees and Phil Hill. So I'm there with three other world champions of the past, which are, fabulous individuals who, obviously were very much part of the making of motor racing as we know it today.
As we move on and think about a suitable way to sort of sum up your career, with a career with such a length and breadth, what words would you use to describe your career?
Well, very fortunate in many ways because fortunate because I was able to drive uninterrupted, for 40 years, and quite honestly, I count my blessings, as I say, every day because of that. I only missed 2 races in the 40 years of my career because of injury. So that gave me the opportunity to accomplish pretty much all of my most ambitious goals. And the passion is what drove me, the passion and desire, the love, the pure love of driving is what kept me motivated over the years. From the very beginning to the very end, I could never get enough of it. I still drive today, even though it's a 2-seater car, but I drive at very competitive speeds. And I just cannot get it out of my system. But talking about my career, again, I love the versatility aspect. I used to really admire drivers like Dan Gurney. It was a big inspiration for me because they would do Formula One first and foremost, and then he'd do sports cars, and he would do NASCAR and win in all these different areas. And then A.J. Foyt, Parnelli Jones at the time, but they were pretty much on this side of the Atlantic. But again, they're the ones that inspire me to just get involved in all the other categories, which I did. And I did, and I won in every category that I entered at the top level. So again, I could never get enough. I used to drive. If you look at my record, many of the years I used to drive 40, 50, 55 races throughout the year. So I was busy, and loved every minute of it.
Yeah, and you did a lot of different series as you touched on there. And how was it for you when it comes to doing that many series at the same time? Because you did not only do just once, because you could go. I think you said you touched on something earlier. I've read that you did. Was it sprint cars or midgets? Yeah. And I think I heard you say at some point that when you drove that, you in sort of visualize yourself as a F1 driver. So at what stage did Formula One become the sort of the goal for you?
Well, David, Formula One was my goal from the beginning. I just didn't know how to go about it. I had to just follow the system here until I could just earn a position in a team and where somebody would pay attention to me, which was Colin Chapman, the first one to do so. But that was my goal from the very beginning. But I became established here in the United States first before I did Formula One, I had 2 championships to my credit, and also 2 second-place finishes in the national championship. So, and I had won, I don't know how many races, but several races in Indy cars, But the bottom line is, I say, Formula One was always in the back of my mind, as one of my main goals. And I just pursued it as soon as it seemed feasible to do so. But overall, again, I just drove whatever I could get my hands on, whatever made sense at the top level, and that's how I derive my satisfaction. But going back to the versatility aspect, I used to love to go even to the absolute extremes, go from Formula One, which is the most sophisticated part of our sport, to the dirt cars, on the dirt tracks, with midgets or sprint cars or champ cars. And sometime I did it the same weekend. And and so
it's the schedule.
I love that part, just to go to extremes, because you always learn something that can apply for instance, on the dirt tracks where you have conditions where it changes almost every lap and you're searching for grip and you're changing your line, that applies to road racing when it comes to wet situations, you know, in a wet race where you're always searching for grip, you're always changing your line and all that, and you learn how to apply throttle just to get minimum amount of wheel spin and all that. So again, it's all about you gain experience that can be used at all the different disciplines, and that's what I found, and to my ultimate satisfaction, quite honestly.
Spinning on that very subject that you touched on there, can you put a finger on in how it helped you to progress through the years and through different series as well?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, what I would do, my progression in my career was like going to school. You know, you just start with first grade, you go on, and you learn, and you go to the next level. I never wanted to repeat my grade. I wanted to go to the next level until I reached the top. And once I reached the top, I just obviously, with the hard work, began to just stay there. And again, but as long as you're driven by deep passion and desire, you know, all those things become fun because you put so much effort into it that usually you get some results back. And then that's the payback that you're looking for, and that's what encourages to go on and on and on and experience more. Once you start winning, you accept nothing less. You know, and you want to keep on winning. You work toward that. And that's the way I saw it. I figure somebody's going to win every race. Well, I always said, might as well be you. You know, might as well be you. That's the way I look at it. And you have to have that mindset. You have to have that positive mindset. And no matter what, if you start reasoning too much, oh, gee, I think I'm missing this, I'm missing that today, you're already done. You're already given up. But going in, I always went in with a very positive mindset that, you know what, no matter what, you know, maybe, a few things are not the way it should be, but you know what, I think I can win. And you have to have that to be able to have any opportunity to get the result.
There is one thing that a lot of people wonder about, and there is what you tell about the cars at that time, and also touch upon the relationship and the conversation you had with Colin Chapman.
Well, when I talk about the cars, I mean, there is an evolution, you know, in technology. When I look back, I feel so fortunate to have experienced the technical evolution from the 60s on all the way up to the year 2000, and experience that, to be on the leading edge on each one of those decades and see the progress, you know, how wonderful that is. And then get into the safety aspect, how we've come along. And when I look back some of the cars that we drove back in the 60s, especially, oh my goodness, you know, the risks that we were taking are unbelievable. Much more, you know, you appreciate that much more today than you did then, because that's all we knew. And but we've come a long way, of course. And again, it's all about understanding the dynamics of the car, no matter where you are, in which decade, and maximizing. The driver's job is always to maximize what you're driving, what you're under. No matter what level of technology that car possesses, it's up to you to take that car to the maximum of its capability. And that's why I always say, you know, many people say, oh gosh, you know, the drivers of the past used to be this better, this and that. No, I say that as human beings, the champions of today would have been champions in the past, and vice versa. You know, a champion is a champion. As I say, it's all about knowing and taking advantage and taking to the limit what you have at your disposal.
All right, well, that's very interesting to hear you say that that the champions of today would be champions back then, and I think that's a great line, and I think it's true. You know, I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you look upon the drivers of today, if we shall do that, with Lewis Hamilton, and I think it's hard to compare current Formula One drivers maybe sometimes with the ones of the past. But if you look upon the top ones we have on the grid, like Alonso or Hamilton or Sebastian Vettel, how would you compare those champions to the champions of the past? Are they as good, or?
Well, it's complicated. It's simple. I mean, it goes back to exactly what I said. I feel that the top drivers, like you just mentioned, for instance, Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso and so forth, and Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, drivers at this level with that capability, driving the equipment of the 50s or 60s, I think would have been on top as well. And the drivers, if Fangio would have been driving a Formula One of today, Scotty or Sterling Moss, right, it would be the same. It's all about, like I said, the ability for the individuals to have that sort of, the feel, for the car to take it to the limit. And that part does not change. Yes, some things change, but there's an evolution, of course. All sports have. But the human element can only take something to the limit, and whatever the limit of that is, that's it. That's the job. And the drivers of today would have done the same 20, 30, 40 years ago, 50, and vice versa. I'll repeat that. To me, that's an absolute fact. The reason, I'll expand that, because the reason I'm telling you is because I drove through the decades myself, like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I did the same thing. My job was, things progress, different aerodynamics, different complex of technology, but, I was able to, to try to get the car, whatever was under me, to the limit, and nothing felt any awkward in a sense, because all I knew that if something had better aerodynamic downforce, I would go faster in the corners. Of course, that's the feel. So the drivers have a certain feel, and you got to go by that. And the feel is to understand the limit of the car before you obviously get into problems. Before you crash. And that's why, as I say, what I'm telling you is a fact that drivers of today are no better than the champions of yesterday.
That's something that I'm really going to try to remember, because this is a debate that's been going on so much through the years, and hearing that, it really puts a broader view upon such a thing. As we look forward and keep talking about your impressive career, what can you tell me about you approached Colin Chapman regarding the drive?
Well, it was very simple. I met Colin Chapman in 1965 when I was a rookie at Indianapolis, and Jim Clark was driving for him. And as you can see, that was my first year officially at the top level of motor racing in the United States. And I was quite successful, in a sense, because I won, in my rookie year, I won the national championship. And so, people like Colin Chapman, would pay attention to that. And when I asked Colin Chapman at that time, I said, Colin, someday, remember, this is 1965, someday, Colin, I would like to do Formula One. And he said to me clearly, he says, Mario, he said, whenever you think you're ready to try, call me. And 3 years later, 1968, I did exactly that toward the end of the season. And I did a test in Monza, and actually I went quicker than Chris Amon did with Ferrari a week earlier in a test, and I set a new record in Monza. And then I was supposed to drive the following weekend, but I had a commitment to drive the United States on a dirt track on Saturday, and so I qualified Friday, and I had to fly back to the States, race here Saturday, which I finished second to AJ Foyt, and then come back to Monza, and there was a 24-hour rule that they were going to waive. It was protested, and it was protested that I obviously, the rule must apply, and we were like in 2-hour deficiency, and they did not let me start. My car was 7th on the grid, and I did not let me start. So my next official start in Formula One was 2 weeks later at the USGP in Watkins Glen, and I put the car on pole for my very first official race. And a lot of people think, well, it's your home track. No, I had never seen Watkins Glen. It was the first time I've ever been there. I didn't even test there, and I put the car on pole. And I was very proud because Jackie Stewart was next to me. My teammates were Rene Wiesel and Graham Hill, and I was able to go quicker than them. So, it was a very auspicious beginning, and that's how the relationship with Colin Chapman started. And then, I raced back and forth, another few races, and then I drove for Ferrari because I was doing part-time Formula One. I had too many commitments in the United States here, and I had the contracts that I had to go by, and so it was not until 1975 that I found my way to do Formula One full-time.
Right, but how was it at that time? How did you get the schedules together to do all those duties?
It was daunting. I mean, it was not easy. The travel was fantastic, however, because back and forth, especially to Europe, I used to use the Concorde a lot, and I had my own airplane, so I could move about, different continents pretty quickly. You didn't have the security aspects and all that at the airport, so I was pretty well wired in. Sometimes I would travel back and forth from here to Europe at least twice a week, and it was no big deal. So when I look back, that was the best way to travel ever in those days, quite honestly, because there were still modern airplanes, faster than even today, and the efficiency was just phenomenal, especially when you had VIP treatment at the airports. If you arrive there late, boom, you're right there. They wait for you, and they don't do that today. But so that's how I was able to very efficiently move around and do all of the scheduling that complete everything. I never missed a race, never missed a practice, never missed anything. So everything worked out phenomenally.
I actually watched lots of your races, and it's just so impressive what you've been able to achieve. And then also, as you said, you have finished so many races, and I can't imagine how you could have the energy to do all that.
Well, the energy was there naturally because I just had the desire. I mean, I didn't have to do all those things. I just wanted to. Even my poor wife would say, Mario, why don't you slow down a little bit and pay a little more attention to your family, to your kids on weekends? And I said, well, I used to have them along. I come to the races and enjoy, so again, but she never interfered. Obviously, she was very supportive always, and she was, she's to today, she's been my rock, throughout my life. So much appreciation for what she has meant to my life and my career. I needed that help, that support throughout, and she gave it to me.
This is a thing that I have to ask you, of course. Since I'm Swedish, we can't forget to talk about your time with Ronnie Peterson. So, first of all, could you pick out some key moments or favorite moments, I shall say, of the 78 season?
Well, the favorite moments were the 1-2 finishes that we had, of course, but the other part was the human relationship that he and I had as friends, competitors, yes, fierce competitors, whether we would play tennis, whether we would do anything. We were always, wanted to win, but the fact is that, it was he and Gunnar Nielsen also, which was also my teammate in '77, that I grew to appreciate tremendously, quite honestly, throughout my time with them as teammates. And again, the best part is to have a teammate that you respect also as a human being. And this was our families spent time together. We all of these things, were just just very, very important to me. And Ronnie, again, we used to dine together. We used to do everything on a weekend. So couldn't have asked any more from a teammate. And the memories that I have, quite honestly, of both men, since they're both Swedes, are very precious indeed.
If we should just talk a little bit more about the person that he was, what strength did he possess, and what did you learn from him from a driving standpoint?
Well, Ronnie had tremendous car control. Is one of the very best in that respect, and very, very fast. I don't think he was as technical as I was, so I benefited from watching, what he was doing as far as just moving the car around, and I think he benefited from me in setups, because I think from moving around the way I did and being really involved in the dynamics of the car, I think I understood the basic setups of the car better than he did. So I think as teammates we complemented each other, in different ways, and that's the best situation you could have.
Spinning on that, was there any number one, number two status in the team, or did you feel that you had equal status?
There was always, any time I drove anywhere, with Colin, nobody told me you're number one, number two. It was just a matter of whoever obviously would earn a position to be ahead in the championship. Then perhaps toward the end of the season, if the partner didn't have a chance to overtake, then the partner could be helped. But with Ronnie, we were pretty much head to head, because many times I had more DNFs than he did. I used to have Colin Chapman insisted on having some experimental engines in my car, which I did not agree, and I had many failures. So whenever I would be out of the race, Ronnie would go on and finish and sometimes just win, and so the point system, was pretty close. So we don't know how it would have ended, if we didn't have that accident in Monza, quite honestly.
As you touched on right there, what can you take us back to that fateful day at Monza, where unfortunately Ronnie had that terrible accident?
Yes, it started out very badly for him. Actually, for some reason, he during practice he crashed his primary car, and then he was put in a spare car, and it was not as quick. So I started on pole, and he started I think fifth or sixth somewhere, deep in the field, and that's how he got caught up in this accident at the start, and then we went on. Actually, I won that race, but I was penalized allegedly for jumping the start, which I think I was going to protest, because Jill Villeneuve next to me is the one that actually jumped the start, and I reacted, and they penalized both of us. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, obviously I clinched the world championship there, because nobody else could reach us, and should have been the happiest day of my career, but I couldn't celebrate. I could not celebrate knowing that I lost, my best friend there and teammate. So as you could see, it was double-edged sword, for me on that day, and I will never forget it. The loss is still there. You never really get over it, quite honestly. It was just undescribable how badly I felt, for everyone. I mean, it's Barbara and the kids and all that. So it was a very complicated situation.
I understand that, but how long did it actually take for you then to get to that position where you could in some way sort of cherish and enjoy the success of winning a world title?
Well, the title stays there. You never lose it, So as life goes on, things soften up a little bit, but it's never the same. It's just you can never really forget the moment, and it was too powerful on the other side. As far as okay, I think Ronnie should have been there maybe to celebrate with me, and he wasn't. So just one of those things. As I said, the title remains, but you can never really celebrate it in a way that you would have otherwise, because you always remember that moment.
And we as well. He has a very fine honorary monument here in Sweden, since he is, of course, the best race car driver that's ever come out of this country. And it's so nice to hear you talk about him and give us listeners an insight on how it was to be so close and working with him as well. So I very thank you a lot for that. And as we keep talking about your racing career, I think we should touch on a little bit of the stints you did in NASCAR and Champ Car.
Well, I was curious, obviously. When it comes to NASCAR, it was, not my favorite discipline, mainly because I just love the purity of open wheel single seaters or even sports prototypes. But since, as I said, individuals like Dan Gurney that inspire me in that area where he was winning some NASCAR races, even though there were road races, and then he was in Formula One. I just, I had the opportunity, and I would ask Ford, which I had a great relationship with at the time, to give me the opportunity, and they would, of course, put me with one of the best teams. And so I did, I did 3 or 4 races there, and then the success I had, of course, winning the Daytona 500, which is their biggest race, and I won it, I think, in pretty good style, actually, because I led 118 of 200 laps, and I was in the lead at the beginning, and I was in the lead at the end. So it was not given to me. I drove against the best there, and I led early against the best, and that was the ultimate satisfaction for me. Again, it was just being curious to see what that side is all about, and come away with great respect, of course. But that was not going to be my cup of tea as far as continuing in NASCAR. My ideas were to be with much faster cars and more pure cars, and I loved the sports cars, the sports prototypes. Driving for Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Porsche. I just derived tremendous satisfaction there, as you can imagine, and by winning with the different races, and it's all about having that kind of the opportunity to do all the things that you're aiming to do, but the opportunity to be with top teams, really, that was always the important aspect of it, because you cannot come away with results unless the equipment is capable of it, and I knew that very well, and so, but the way things were going for me, I was lucky that I could get rides, with some of the best teams where I had the pure opportunity to bring home the results, and I did.
Yeah, you sure did, and I think you participated in a TV program called Legends of F1, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And it's just so impressive to see all the trophies, man. How long does it take to polish all of them?
Well, I think we have our housekeeper that just does several, one day and or for a whole month, and then goes around and it starts at the beginning again.
No,
She does a fabulous job.
All right, I think since you are here, and I think there's a lot of people that would love to hear you talk about current Formula One, and there's a few things that I would like to talk with you about regarding just that. So, when it comes to this, I don't know if you've seen this halo head protection. What do you think about that? And also, do you think a head protection would have saved guys like Justin Wilson?
Well, yes, I would think so. That there were some events that probably some injuries and worse that could have been avoided by having a head protection over the cockpit. No question about it. Again, I'm all for safety, but I think you still have to maintain, the concept of the series. I mean, if you're going to have an open wheel, open cockpit series, it's got to be an open cockpit. If you're going to, and if you want a closed cockpit series, you go into sports cars, or stock cars. But again, today I think it's up to the present drivers to express themselves. If the halo is what they want, and then they should get it. So I'm all again for safety features, but the halo may not be providing all of the answers. It may provide some negatives. So you have to look at that aspect as well. And I think I'm sure that the people involved in making these decisions will come to the proper conclusion there.
And I actually agree with you that it's sort of takes away a little bit of the soul of Formula One.
The purity of that. Well, I mean, it's that series, has been existing since 1950. And it's been like that. And so I don't know whether we should give that up. But again, if I was an active driver, I would be a lot more active as far as expressing my opinion. So I'm just holding back and letting the present drivers express themselves.
We have seen you at COTA, short for Circuit of the Americas, in Austin, Texas, since the opening in 2012. So, how much has that meant for America when it comes to bringing Formula One into America? And what do you think, from your personal view, is the key of sort of breaking through in America with Formula One?
Well, I think first of all, when you talk about the key, this is part of the key to have a good host facility that it's up to the standard of the rest of the world. And this is something that was lacking here in the United States, quite honestly. And COTA has met that, that need. And now also with the American team, with the Haas team, I think what they're missing perhaps is an American driver somewhere, to be representing this country. And sooner or later, I think that's going to happen. I think it would be great because it would do tremendously for the interest of the American fan base, even though I think it's very strong when it comes to Formula One, but it could be a lot stronger where the press would probably pay a lot more attention if there wasn't, more, if a driver was involved, because, okay, you have the theater, but you need the player. And that's the only thing that's missing at the moment to complete the cycle, if you will.
All right, yeah, and I agree to that. But do you think that maybe guys like Alexander Rossi or Joseph Newgarden, Connor Daly could be guys that could make it in Formula One?
I think so, yes. With a proper team, you can never evaluate a talent until you're, with a more of a top team. Even Alexander Rossi, when he was with Manor, which is the only team that gave him an opportunity, he would out-qualify usually and outrace his teammate. That's the only way you can evaluate it, but he needed to go to the next level. He needed to have an opportunity with a team that could give him the chance to show more of what he had. And I think, him coming back to the States here to do IndyCar, he's shown that he does possess some very special talent. And so we'll see. He's very young, and maybe he will get the opportunity that he deserves. But these are the players, the ones that actually I think could be cultivated. Connor Daly has done GP2 and has done quite well. But he was never really tried, as I know, in Formula One. So, and Joseph Newgarden is quite the revelation, I think this year especially. And him in proper equipment, I think, could be very interesting. This is why many times I've been suggesting, and it's not getting the reception that I was hoping, to allow for Formula One to allow guest drivers to come in and do like whatever country they're in. If there's a top driver there, they could be invited by Mercedes or Ferrari to be the third car. Can you imagine what it would be if the increased interest in the race in the United States at COTA, if, say, Mercedes would say, we're giving Joseph Newgarden an opportunity this weekend, and, he would have at least testing somewhere, but there's a third car, in a Mercedes. Can you imagine the amount of interest that would, you'd probably pick up another 50,000 people,
Yeah, I exactly, and I agree. I think that's what F1 is lacking. That I don't know if you can call it crisscross, because you saw if you go over to America again, you saw Kurt Busch being able to do IndyCar in 2000. I think it was 2014 with Andretti Autosport, and being able to do just that. You have a current CSG racing, and you have getting this opportunity to go and do something else. I think that would be great. I totally agree with you, Mario.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying this is because that's how I experienced it. I was able to go to a top team at the time, Lotus, and be the third driver on the team just for, whatever 3 or 4 races that I did that season. I won my very first Formula One race in 1971 in South Africa, driving for Ferrari as a third member of the team. And so here again, it was Clay Regazzoni, was Jackie Eakes, the regular drivers, and I was the third driver, and I won there. And I won the following race was a non-championship race in Ontario, California, the same way, and both times, who was second? It was Jackie Stewart, who was basically, the top driver of the moment. So can you imagine having that today, to have that guest driver situation, and if a guest driver all of a sudden would show that these, he can fight, with some of the regular drivers there, and, it would have to be good for the sport. It would have to be tremendous for the interest, and I think the press would eat that up, quite honestly. So I think Formula One needs to think about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was in 2011 when Kimi Räikkönen went over. I think did some truck and nationwide in the NASCAR series. And I don't know, but I can't stop by being so impressed by the way America sort of thinks about the show and think about the sport, and it sort of works. And over in Formula One, you saw Kurt Busch. He was in Baku this year, and he touched on that it's too limited, it's too closed, and I don't know how Formula One's gonna get in touch and get that sort of get that working properly.
Well, like I said, it's a matter of thinking about increasing the interest, of that category. I think Formula One benefits tremendously from the amount of exposure to get worldwide on television. To create more interest like this cannot hurt. I mean, it's all part of the business. It's all technical, yes, but it's also a show business. And these are all the things that would enhance, the popularity of that category, quite honestly.
Mario, is it possible to go through two fan questions?
Of course, yes.
One of my close friends, Roger Hemberg, has a question for you, and it's like this. Why there are so few Americans on the ladder to Formula One at the moment?
Well, the way I can answer that is that it's because America, when you look at the big picture, is probably the only country in the world that possesses series like NASCAR or IndyCar that you can complete a career without really going abroad and still feel that you're racing at the top level. So it's going to take very special desire from someone to feel that, I think I need to be, say, in Formula One to satisfy my career as a race driver. So, again, that's the one reason. I know that, for instance, myself, just being born in Italy, even though I only lived there the first 15 years of my life, Formula One was ingrained in me right at the beginning, and that's what I really wanted. And when I came here, I tried to use every opportunity to become, relevant, and become known through the racing here, with the idea that I still want to do Formula One throughout my career. And then I see even in my own kids where they were just brought, into this environment just here in the States. They like Formula One, but they don't have that real desire like I did. So that's why you see very few of these youngsters that have that pure passion to go into Formula One. So that's the only way I can explain it, as I say, that you can be quite satisfied with just having a career here. It's the only country on this planet, really, that can make that statement.
Wow. That's cool. It's very cool to hear you say that. I don't think I've heard anyone explain it like that before, so it's quite gives me quite an insight. And also Tobias wonders this. He says, I've heard that Mario is a big fan of Sebastian Vettel. If so, why?
Well, I just I like his demeanor, and love his talent, of course, like all his fans. I got to know him the first time, back in 2006 or 8 in Bahrain, when he actually it was the first season with the Red Bull, and I had some good conversations with him then, and then continued that, and I just always detected this deep passion, for the sport. No, nothing else really mattered to him, which I identify with that, quite honestly. And what he has accomplished, what he's done, speaks for itself. I love the fact that, even then when he was driving for Red Bull, we spoke lightly, and he had this goal ultimately to wind up at Ferrari. Obviously, Sebastian, I think, was a great fan of Michael Schumacher, and Sebastian being a Ferrari now, it's given that brand a big lift in a situation now where they're fighting for to be competitive. But he's really perfect for that for Ferrari, because he just really loves to be there, and he's going to bring them the next World Championship for sure. I'm 100% sure of that. And again, I love his determination. He's never really. He always has a positive attitude. There's not one ounce of pessimism, in his way of thinking, and I love that. That's what you need to be a winner that he knows he can be again. Again, that's the quality that I look in a driver, and as a person, I think he's very modest individual, but again, one that can accomplish a great deal, and he will always have my admiration.
With those finishing words, it's time to close the store, and I want to say a huge thank you, Mario, for me being able to just be a part of the little time that you might have. I understand there's a lot of people that wants to talk to you, so it's been an absolute pleasure, an absolute honor to be able to talk to you this afternoon as it is here in Sweden, and I wish you the very best looking forward.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. As I said earlier, thank you for having me. I appreciate that immensely, and let's keep on loving the sport.